I'm gonna call me Luta. Can you be my tutor? I want to feel like tutor. Can you be my tutor? I want to feel.
So, another method that we can use to find the vertex in order to help us solve our question is the vertex formula. This is a much simpler, a much shorter, and a more straightforward way to find the vertex. So how does the vertex formula look like? Well, it's given by h is equals to negative b over 2a, comma, k is equals to f of negative b over 2a. This is our vertex formula. So what does all this mean? Well, if we start by looking at h is equals to negative b over 2a, this is what we use to find the value of h. Negative b over 2a is simply the value of h. So once we solve this, we find the value of h. And then when it comes to k is equals to f of negative b over 2a. Remember that we have already established here that this negative b over 2a is the value of h. And f here represents our function. In this case, f is simply given by nt is equals to 20t squared minus 20t plus 120. Now, this notation that we have here, k is equals to f of negative b over 2a, means that once we have found our value of h, we are going to get our value of h and then use it as an input in our quadratic function. This simply means that we are going to replace t with the value of h. So wherever we have t, we are going to put the value of h. And once we put the value of h wherever we have t, we are going to solve our function. Then the final answer that we get after solving our function is going to give us our k. Therefore, after finding the value of h and then substituting this value of h for t in order to find k, we would have found the vertex. So this is another method we can use to find the vertex using the vertex formula. So let's jump straight into answering our question. In order to find the vertex and then solve our question, we are going to start with finding the value of h. So to find the value of h, we need to know what our b is. We also need to know what our a is. So in this case, our h is going to be equals to negative b over 2a. So we know that our b is equals to negative 20. Up here, we're going to have negative multiplied by negative 20. Then down here, we're going to have 2 multiplied by a. What is our a? If we look carefully at our quadratic function, is 20. We even have it up here. So we're going to put 20 there. If we simplify this further, we're going to have negative times negative 20, which will give us a positive 20. And then in the denominator, we have 2 times 20. And we know that 2 times 20 is equals to 40. So we're going to have 20 over 40. If we simplify this further, 20 into 20 is 1. 20 into 40 is 2. So our final answer is half. That means that our h is half. So we have found our h. So the next thing that we need to do is find our k. So we're going to have k is equals to 20 multiplied by half squared minus 20 multiplied by half plus 120. When we simplify this further and then we look at 20 multiplied by the square of half, we know that the square of half is basically 1 over 4, and then 20 multiplied by 1 over 4 is going to give us 20 over 4. Then the next step is to multiply this negative 20 by half, which will give us negative 10 plus 120. When we simplify this further, we're going to have k is equals to 20 divided by 4 is 5 minus 10 plus 120. And then our final answer after we add and subtract is going to give us 115. So our k is equals to 115. So now that we know the values of both h and k, we can officially say that we have found the vertex. So the vertex in this case is equals to half, 115. So this is the vertex. And if we make reference to our question 3c, which reads, at what temperature will the number of bacteria be minimal? We know that our h in this case represents the temperature. So once we know our h, we know the temperature that will lead to the minimal number of bacteria. In this case, our h is equals to 1 over 2 or half, which means that our t, or the temperature that will give us the minimal number of bacteria, is also equals to half or 1 over 2. So this is our final answer. The temperature 1 over 2 degrees is what will give us the minimal number of bacteria. And just like that, we have answered and finished this question. Now let's move on to the next question. If you're struggling to understand math and you know that you need help, please feel free to sign up for our math tuition classes by scanning the barcode that you can see on your screen right now, or by registering using the link in the description below. Like we mentioned previously in question 3, the vertex formula is given by h is equals to negative b over 2a, k equals to f of negative b over 2a. So we already explained the meaning of this in the previous question. We're just going to jump straight into solving our question. So we're going to write down our function here, which is f of x is equals to negative 16 x squared plus 64x plus 190. So this is what we have here. And then the next thing we're going to do is going to pick out what our a is. We know that our a in this case is negative 16, our b is 64, and our c is 190. So we're going to start first by finding what our h is, what the value of our h is. So we're going to say h is equals to negative b over 2a. The next thing that we're going to do is substitute the values of b and a into this equation here so that we have negative. Our b is 64, so we're going to have 64. And in our denominator, we're going to have 2. And we know that our a is negative 16. So we're going to have negative 16 over there. And then we're going to say equals. So if we simplify this further, we're going to have negative 64 divided by 2 times negative 16 is going to give us negative 32. And we know that negative 32 divided into 64 is 2. So we can see that the 2 that we found here, or the value of h that we found here, is the same as the value that we found in the previous method. So this is just 1 and the same thing. Now we're going to get this 2, or we're going to get this negative b over 2a, and then we're going to insert it into our function, all right, in order to find k. So let's find k. So we're going to have k is equals to negative 16 x squared plus 64x plus 190. So we're just going to substitute 2 for x. So wherever we have x, we're going to replace with the value of h, which is 2, so that we have k is equals to negative 16 multiplied by 2 squared plus 64 multiplied by 2 plus 190, so that our k here is going to be negative 16 times 2 squared. We know that 2 squared is 4, and 4 times negative 16 is negative 64. So that's what we have here. And then here we know that 2 times 64 is going to give us 128. So we're going to have a positive 128 there. And then we're also going to add our 190 over here. When we simplify this further, our final answer is going to give us 254. This is our final answer. So we have found our k and we have also found our h. Therefore, our vertex is given by the coordinates 2, which is our h, and our k, 254. So we have found what the vertex is, and in this case, the vertex, like we mentioned, is the highest point on the graph of our function negative 16x squared plus 64x plus 190 is the highest point. So these are the coordinates of the highest point, this being the x coordinate and this being the y coordinate. So when we put 2 into our function, we are going to get 254 as our output. Therefore, the number of products that are sold each day in order to maximize profit are given by this h here. So we know that h is just the same as x in this case, which represents the number of products. And we know that since h is equals to 2, then x itself is also equals to 2. So we need to sell 2 products each day in order to maximize profit. Now, once we sell these 2 products, what's the amount of the maximum profit that we generate from selling these 2 products? We know that that value is given by k, and k in this case is what? Is 254. And because k is 254, that means that our MP, our maximum profit, is also going to equal 254. This is our final answer. So whenever we sell 2 products each day in order to maximize profit, the amount of profit that we are going to generate is $254. So you can basically find a proper way to just write down your answer. You do not need to do the whole h is equals to x equals to 2 and k is equals to MP equals to 254. Your lecturer might be confused when marking your paper or something like that. So you can just go ahead and just say the number of products x that we need to sell each day in order to maximize profit is equals to 2, and the maximum profit is equals to $254. I think that suffices. So this is basically how we can solve this particular question using second method, which involves using the vertex formula to find the vertex. And once we find the vertex, we know what our h is and we also know what our k is. If you're struggling to understand math and you know that you need help, please feel free to sign up for our math tuition classes by scanning the barcode that you can see on your screen right now, or by registering using the link in the description below. Thank you very much. We have come to the end of our lesson today. See you in the next video.
Can you be mine? Walk on a queen. Can you be mine?